ready to move forward with the topic of leadership, and I am super excited about who we have here today. We have a leadership expert who is going to be discussing with us this very important trait called trustworthiness as a leader. So coming to us from Xenia, Ohio, our special guest has an impressive and diverse background that spans from executive level leadership roles, higher education, military, engineering, consulting, and more. Whether working with small nonprofit organizations or large Fortune 500 companies, he is a bridge builder between individuals and information to lead people to teams to wild success. He is the owner and founder of Anderson Leadership Resources and is passionate about leadership development and team building. We're so happy to have you here with us. Welcome, Michael Anderson.
Thank you very much, Mandy. It is great to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, I remember the first time I read your full bio, Michael, and I've known you for a long time, but I read your bio before meeting you. And I just remember thinking to myself, how is it possible that someone could have accomplished so much and have so many interests? So I would love for you to just kick it off by telling us, why did you decide to build a company based on leadership?
Wow, that's a great question, Mandy. I've always been interested in leadership. I joined the Army when I was only 17 years old. I joined the Army National Guard, and then when I consider my top 5 strengths finder talents, communication, strategic are in there. A lot of times those can mix and mingle to create command. I find myself just fascinated with the topic of leadership. And as I continued my studies in communication and did my master's research on identity, I really got dialed into humanizing leadership by helping leaders lead out of their identity and also leading people out of their identity. It really humanizes the leadership process and the power structure. And I think it's the most honoring way that we can lead. And research shows it's the most productive way that leaders can lead in the long term.
Excellent. Excellent. So we are going to be talking about trust specifically today. And I want to lay some groundwork because I know you're going to get into sharing some really great resources and concepts around, building skills as a leader, especially as it relates to trust. So just talk to us about, why is it important to have trust? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, but I'd love to hear it from your angle.
Yeah, thanks. Trust is really, and Patrick Lencioni actually does an excellent job of laying this out. If you haven't read his book, The Advantage, I like to refer to that as the field manual of leadership. Read that. And he does an excellent job of pointing out that the foundation of every great team is trust, plain and simple. Leaders tend to focus on results. Well, leaders are responsible to get results, but we get those results by marshaling our resources, our human resources, and leading people to results. And if people do not trust the leader, if they do not trust their teammates, things are not going to go well. Plain and simple. That's the foundation right there. Trust.
We've all been in those meetings where there is a lack of trust, and it kind of just feels like there's so much resistance. It just, and you can feel it a lot of times in the room, and maybe people don't realize that the root of it is trust. But I know I've been there on teams where that trust, it just doesn't feel good, and you don't feel like you can confidently move forward.
No, I think that's just it, Manny. You don't feel like you can confidently move forward. If people do not have trust, they are not going to move forward. They must trust their environment, their leader, their teammates. Otherwise, you're going nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us more about, how can you build trust? Are there just easy ways to do it, or it kind of seems like such a deep-seated issue? Do we have to go to therapy, or are there some tricks for leaders?
Well, I suppose some of us have to go to therapy. That's not a bad thing. You build trust through credibility by being honest with people. But so that's a very, very broad topic. But what we can do right now is talk about what makes people, or what types of situations are people in, and what kind of resources can we as leaders bring to the table that are going to foster an environment of trust. I think I don't know. I don't know about you, Mandy. Have you ever been doing something that you're supposed to do, that you want to do, and in the middle of the activity, you stop and think to yourself, "This is stupid." I've had, yeah, I've had that happen 3 times specifically, where I can remember pausing and thinking, "This is stupid." And the first one was when I went rappelling. And you hit that point as you back off of a cliff where you feel, your body is telling you, if you go a half an inch further, you're going to fall. And everything in your body says, do not do this. It's stupid. Mm-hmm. But you've got a safety line. And that safety line allows you to back off of a cliff, something that your body is telling you, do not do this. It's stupid. And as leaders, what we can do is learn how to identify and provide these safety lines for the people that we lead.
Fascinating. I love that analogy. I've never done that myself, but I have been hiking where I was coming down without a rope. And it was exactly what you just described. This is dumb. I shouldn't do this. This is scary. Yeah. I was in, it took me a while to get over that fear and actually come down the mountain. Right. So talk to us, how does that then relate to the workplace? How do we avoid that feeling?
Right. Great question. Well, first of all, as leaders, we can all know at any given moment, our people exist in one of 3 different, we'll call them zones, right? And I have to give credit to Gonzaga University, where I learned this, and a lot of this comes out of the Leadership the Outward Bound Way books. But people live in 3 zones. That's it. So as a leader, your people are in one of 3 zones, or maybe emotional states, we could call it. The first zone we'll think of as the comfort zone. I perceive no threats where I am right now. Maybe you're sitting at home on the couch, eating potato chips and watching Netflix. I don't know what your comfort zone is or how big it is, but we all have a comfort zone. The next zone that people get into, once we get out of our comfort zone, we enter what's called the growth zone, or the stretch zone. This is really important because this is the only place where growth happens. You're not growing in your comfort zone. You're only growing in the growth zone. And what's fascinating to me, one of my favorite leadership books, is Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. People want to grow. They want to be developed. So as a leader, it's in your best interest to keep people in that growth zone as much as possible. Continue to develop them, continue to nurture them. And as we expand, as we go through this growth zone and we start getting out towards the edge, we approach the panic zone. And once someone crosses over into the panic zone, all learning stops. Yeah, you can see the 3 zones right there. And while we progress from safety through growth into panic, we do not regress through growth. We pass over growth and go right directly to our comfort zone. We're experiencing an amygdala hijack. We're not thinking with our prefrontal cortex. All we want to do is get safe. We're not growing. We are in full-blown fight or flight mode, and going back to our comfort zone where we're going to be safe and not experience any threats. So as a leader, you can know right away, I've got 3 options with my teammates. They're either in the safety zone, the growth zone, or the panic zone. And the way you find out is ask. That's it.
So the goal then is to keep your people in the growth and learning zone.
Yes, as much as possible. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we do that by asking questions, is what you're saying.
Well, right, being observant, because you want to know how someone's doing. Here's what I'm talking about, Mandy. If let's say I delegate something to you and you don't want to do it, something is keeping you from moving forward with this task. And now it's my job as a leader to be a learner and be curious about, well, what's happening with Mandy. So the way I teach leaders to dial into this is what I call the 5 safeties. So you have 3 zones and 5 safeties. If one of these safeties is out of place, then people aren't going to move forward, plain and simple. These are safety lines, if you will, that allow people to back off the cliff, allow people to try something new and grow. So I just use my hand, yeah, as a memory device. Your pinky, which represents or is probably your weakest and most vulnerable finger, represents physical safety. If people do not feel physically safe, they're not going anywhere. I saw this happen. I was actually teaching someone to rappel. There's a boy there, and he was having none of it. He was in his harness, he had his helmet, he had his rope. Everybody else was going down next to him, would not budge, even without the safety lines. And it was because he did not feel physically safe. And in our work environment, not many of us are rappelling, but there may be clutter in the office. There may be someone in the office who is physically threatening,
Right.
right?
Bullying.
So
We do see that. We see bullying.
sadly, we do, right? So find out, first of all, are you physically safe? What are your concerns here? And if they say, no, it's fine, I don't have any issues with that. Let's take a look at the next finger, our ring finger, which appropriately enough represents relational safety. This is really, really important. As neurologists continue to study the brain, what they find is that social safety is preeminent among people. Our brains are designed to identify threats. Friends are not threats. Enemies are. So I'm asking you to take on a task, to lead a new project, and you are reticent to do that. Say, well, how much of that is affected by concerns you might have over our relationship? And what the person wants to know is, if this doesn't go well, are you still going to be my friend? Is our friendship going to be okay?
Okay.
Right. So
it's severing, if there's doubt, it could sever the relationship or in their mind.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think if you have the responsibility talent in your top 5, that's probably a significant trigger for you, because responsibility people get things done because of the relational aspect. If it doesn't go well, if I don't get it done, it's going to hurt my relationships. So establishing and creating relational safety is foundational to creating an environment of trust. And that spreads across the team to the other team members. So, well, let's move on, right? Your middle finger, not surprisingly, represents respect, okay? Instead of showing disrespect, use your middle finger to dial in on whether or not people feel safe when it comes to respect. In other words, if this doesn't go well, are you going to respect me? Look, I'm going up here to do my best. And it's really important that our relationship stays healthy and that I'm respected by you, you see. So again, it's a matter of being curious and being a learner, asking questions, and just letting them know, look, if this doesn't go well, yeah, I respect you. We're in this together. And I really appreciate that you're willing to take this on. What else do you need? Do you feel, use a pointer finger, directionally safe? Do you understand where we're going with this project, what the end result needs to look like, where you're getting your resources, who else is involved in the process? That is all part of directional safety. What are the values, mission, and vision of our organization? If those aren't clear, they create ambiguity. And that ambiguity is going to foster mistrust, a sense of insecurity. So finding out if people understand the destination is really, really important. I think a great example of this on teams is quarterbacks and wide receivers. The quarterback trusts the wide receiver is going to be at the sideline before the quarterback even throws the ball. Before that receiver cuts over to the sideline, the quarterback has already thrown the ball. He's already executed his task because he trusts his teammate to be there to catch the ball. Very, very powerful.
Everybody knows where you're going. You have a plan. There's a path.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I love that. And it feels like what you're saying, Michael, there's just really a lot of this can be handled by these conversations, just bringing it up, asking, figuring out where they're at about things. I mean, that doesn't seem that hard. It really doesn't. But we are resistant at times. Not everybody's good at that, right?
Right. Yeah, sure. That's very fair. I mean, and that's part of the beauty of this. Leadership doesn't have to be difficult. This is very simple. I'm talking 3 zones, 5 safeties, and I'm using my hand to figure it out. And your thumb, you can use your thumb up, I'm safe. Thumbs down, I'm not safe. So it's a quick way that you can check in on a team and say, hey, team, how are we doing? Is everybody feeling okay here today? Are we ready to move forward? Thumb up, yes. Thumb down, no. Be curious. Okay, tell me what's happening here. Now that requires then that we as a leader and the teammates that we have are vulnerable with one another. Brene Brown has done so much great work on vulnerability, and really vulnerability I refer to as the fertile soil that allows trust to grow. And as a leader, you need to learn the skills of leadership and execute them. So and part of that means, I've got to be vulnerable and I have to be willing to hear some hard things, possibly.
Yeah.
So
that is what you just talked about. Those 2 concepts are really skills that we can build as leaders.
Yes.
What happens when we get into what if you're just not good as a leader at sensing things? Like, you think everything's fine, and maybe you're even asking the questions, but they're maybe not being straightforward with you. How do we get around that? How do we address that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mandy. People, honesty is it's dicey, right? If I'm honest with you about how I'm feeling, you might judge me. It might hurt our relationship. You might not respect me. And yet we have to have the strength of character to face those sort of things. The other aspect of it is, if we have the skills, we may know the skills, but have we actually developed the skills to implement these things? And that's why I like the 3 zones and the 5 safeties, because it's not difficult. It's very, very easy to do. The trick is we're going to lead out of our design, plain and simple. And which means every leader is going to lead differently, right?
Right.
Then out of our design and how well we know these skills, the next piece of that puzzle is, how strong is my character structure? Do I have the ability to really face the demands of reality? And reality can be tough.
Sure.
There was a time early in my leadership career where I had 2 people on a team who hated each other. The reason they became friends is they were united by their mutual hatred of me. Because as a leader, I was unable to enter into their conflict and address it head on, get them to knock it off, and move our team forward. I was just frozen. I didn't have the skills, but I think more to the point, I lacked the character structure to do so. A few years later, I was leading another team, and one of the women on the team, I was pulling 3 teams together, doing all kinds of new stuff. And there was one woman on the team. She had a master's degree in piano performance, and I believe she had a master's degree in art. She's the daughter of an artist, and just an incredibly creative, talented, capable young woman, very smart. And as we were setting up this team, having our team retreat, I said, I want you to know I believe in you and I'm giving you carte blanche to be creative and do wonderful work. We took a break and she pulled me aside and she said, you know, when you told me that, it is actually terrifying. And I don't want to be on this team. I don't want you to be my leader. Now, my younger leader, when in that situation with those two women, or those two who didn't get along, would have crumbled under that. But instead, I had grown. I'd learned some skills. I'd grown my character, and I was curious. And I used the 5 zones, the 3 zones, and the 5 safeties to say, well, okay, tell me more. What's going on here? Well, she'd been thrown under the bus by her previous leader, and I'd seen that and wasn't happy about it either. And so I made a deal with her. She needed directional safety, and she needed to know that she's going to be respected for her work. And I said, how about this? You tell me what kind of direction you need, and I will provide it, because that's my role as a leader, to remove obstacles and provide resources. I'll give you what you need. And she said, well, I need you to check in and make sure that I'm on track. So great. Every Friday, I'm going to inspect your work, and every Monday, and we'll make sure that we're on track. And she said, okay, that sounds good. I'll give you one more, I said. If this doesn't go well, if your project doesn't go well, I'm taking the fall, because I'm the one who is in the lead here. And if it does go well, I'm giving you all the credit. She said, well, really? I said, yeah, I really. And our first project that she worked on was outstanding. We came up with one of the best recruiting videos that our business ever had. And she was at the helm, and it was praised by all. So
Wow.
worked out really well.
I can't imagine a better way to build trust by saying that. No, I'll take the fall if it fails, but you get all the credit if it doesn't.
Right.
What an amazing way to build trust right there. And
Yeah,
it just seems like a maturity from like you said, you had matured, you had grown.
Yeah.
And my guess is, Michael, is that you also, you know, where your natural ability to lead falls. I know we were talking a little bit about design a little bit ago, and that really does play so much into being a good leader, is knowing how you lead. It's not the same across the board. Everybody has obviously their natural way of doing things. And so, but so do all the people that you're leading. And so I love how you just got from her, what are your needs? And, you know, we know that they're not necessarily the same as ours. And so to me, that had to have been a really good, you know, that has to feel good from on the receiving end, to be honored for what you need.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. That's the idea. Look, as leaders, we're leading people. Let's treat them like people, not cogs in a machine. You know, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
What happens when so you brought some up. This is a random question, but as a leader, you know, there's a pecking order, right? You're overseeing a team. Yeah. What if you let that, you know, hierarchy kind of get to you, or, you know, that ego? You know, how do we kind of level the playing field so that everybody feels like, well, I can come to Michael as my leader because he looks at me as an equal?
Wow. That's a deep question, Mandy. Nice. So here's the thing. How do we level the playing field? I think we need to embrace our humanity. What I mean by that is, I can't do everything. Honestly, I cannot organize my way out of a paper bag. This is the way a friend of mine in the Army would put it. I'm terrible at that. I need people around me who can do that. And here's the thing, there is no leader who can do everything. Furthermore, from a neurological perspective, we are designed for community. There's a reason solitary confinement, isolation is a punishment. So accept our weaknesses, accept our, let's call them deficiencies or flaws, accept our gaps, accept the fact that we're human and we can't do everything. We have limitations. That's just the way it is. And understand that other people are in the same place. So there's a woman I know who has at times been an assistant of mine, and I would always feel guilty to say, can you file these papers? Can you stuff these envelopes and put stamps on them? You know what? She loves that stuff. It drives me bananas, but she loves it. So she's feeling great. I'm feeling great because I'm not doing it. She's doing something she loves to do. She's making a meaningful contribution, and I'm able to do what I can do. Now it's a win-win.
Right.
You see.
And knowing what they love to do is so important. You know,
Right.
what do you like to do? Because we assume that
Yes.
everybody is thinking the same way that we are, and that they
Right.
enjoy the same things that we do, and that are energized by the same things that we are.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
Right.
It's just not true.
Right. I want to say one more thing about your question about leveling the playing field in a hierarchy, because we do, as Bob Dylan says, you got to serve someone, right? What you're talking about there also is built on our character structure. There's one part of our character structure. There's 4 parts. You've got bonding, and then you have boundaries, and then you have integration, being able to accept the good and bad in ourselves and others. And then the last part of our character structure that develops is adulthood. And that is hard. Adulthood means I can show up in a relationship on it as an equal. I don't show up one up, even though I might be the boss. I don't show up one down, even though I might be an employee. You know, I might not have that position, or maybe I am the boss and I just always take a one down position. That is our character structure right there. You see, there are our bonding is our ability to have mutual relationships. Our boundaries means I can differentiate myself. I am not you, you are not me, and that's a good thing. Right? I can say no to events and requests and whatnot. And then integration means if I do something bad, I don't go all bad on myself, or I don't go all bad on you, Mandy. You know, if you do something that's a little, less than stellar, we understand that there's good and bad in everyone. And then we have our adulthood character structure. So dealing with that, showing up as equals, that mutual respect is predicated on knowing the skills, knowing our design, and then having the character structure to execute on those skills with maturity in our design.
Wow. That is awesome. I learned so much. I wish I could be taking notes. I'm gonna have to listen back to this because you gave me so many nuggets. So we barely scratched the surface, I'm sure. How can people learn more with you? How can they go deeper with you? Do you have any opportunities for them to learn more?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I would say go to my website, andersonlr.com. And I'm beginning even now to put more free resources on there. Sign up for a 30-minute call. There's no charge. Let's talk about coaching. Let's talk about doing some team building. Let's talk about leadership development. I'm in the process of recruiting people for a year-long leadership journey where we dig into what are the skills of leadership, how do I implement those skills based on my design, how do I grow my character structure so that I have, let's call it the intestinal fortitude to move forward and execute on what I've learned.
Outstanding. Michael, thank you so much for joining us, being here, sharing all of your wisdom with us. We appreciate you so much.
You're very kind, Mandy. Thank you very much for having me on today. I really, really enjoyed it and love to do it again sometime. Or if anybody's out there listening, for those of you with questions, want to learn more, by all means, toss me an email, sign up for a phone call, and let's talk about where you're headed and what you want to achieve.
Very good. So much. Thanks, everybody.